الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونستنصره، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له، ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، إلها واحدا أحدا صمدا، لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. وأشهد أن نبينا وعظيمنا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وبعد. يقول جل جلاله في محكم كتابه: وقال الذين كفروا لرسلهم لنخرجنكم من أرضنا أو لتعودن في ملتنا، فأوحى إليهم ربهم لنهلكن الظالمين ولنسكننكم الأرض من بعدهم، ذلك لمن خاف مقامي وخاف وعيد. واستفتحوا وخاب كل جبار عنيد، من ورائه جهنم ويسقى من ماء صديد يتجرعه ولا يكاد يسيغه، ويأتيه الموت من كل مكان وما هو بميت، ومن ورائه عذاب غليظ. يقول سبحانه وتعالى: ولا تحسبن الله غافلا عما يعمل الظالمون، إنما يؤخرهم ليوم تشخص فيه الأبصار. يقول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فيما يرويه الإمام مسلم في الحديث القدسي: قال الله يا عبادي إني حرمت الظلم على نفسي وجعلته بينكم محرما فلا تظالموا أو فلا تظالموا. يقول صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم في الحديث المتفق عليه: إن الله ليملي للظالم حتى إذا أخذه لم يفلته. As we continue to watch what is occurring within the Holy Land over this course of the last 6 to 7 days, in absolute and complete horror and fear for what is occurring to our brothers and sisters in the small strip of Gaza, while the world continues to defend the oppressor's right to defend itself, and condemns the oppressed as they try to show some degree or some sign of resilience or resistance, as they continue to try and make sure the world still knows that they're there and that they're not buried yet and that this cause has not died yet. By not only the world that we live in here, but the world that is surrounding them there. Some by people and politicians who we welcomed into our masajid throughout the last number of years, making remarks and statements that are nauseating, disgusting, and vomit-inducing. I'm not here today to make you more angry than you already are, or to increase your fear, to have you walk out of here feeling upset more than you already do. Rather, I want to be able to walk away with 3 things. Number 1, what narrative you must continue to carry, because the narrative matters. It matters a lot. What advocacy you can be a part of, and what your children must need to continue to have. This is not the first time in my lifetime that I have stood on a minbar and talked about atrocities occurring in the Holy Land. And I fear it won't be the last. But I can tell you for sure that since I have been born, this is the worst. I've never seen carpet bombing like this before. I have never seen people in the millions being commanded to go nowhere, or else they will die under the rubble. I haven't seen such brutality, such barbarianism, and at the same time, such hypocrisy. The double standard has never been so clear. It's very difficult for me, and maybe for you as well, to understand how is it that the world continues to carry the same narrative. It's very frustrating. The explanations I do not want to point out. The options of the explanations are very difficult to digest. Why is it that this is how they see things? There's only a couple of options of why they could do it. All of them are horrible. I don't want to share them with you. I'm going to ignore them for now. But let's talk about something that's beneficial. In the midst of watching all that's going on, a history of 75 years, or a little bit more, around 100 years. There's a lot that has occurred. There's a lot of conversations and discussions and details. And when people start arguing it, it becomes very chaotic and almost distracting and a bit disturbing. As a Muslim, let me make this simple for you. Don't engage in sideline conversations. Don't get caught up in discussions of details that occurred over the last couple of days or maybe last couple of years or even decades. It's really easy to have this discussion. Go back to the basic. Go back to the basic argument. Go back to when it all started. And hold that narrative. Hold it and stand by it. And we're not in a position to comment on whether we like how the resisted, or they done it any better, or we're not in that position. I'm not in a position to make a comment. Whether I agree or disagree, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't live there. I haven't been treated like a subhuman being for the last 70 years. I'm not in that position to make a comment. But I tell you what I do know, and I'll tell you what you know. Facts, not opinion. Historical facts. These aren't issues that are up for debate. Make sure this narrative is clear for you. Make sure it's clear for those around you. 1917, the Balfour Declaration. A foreign group promised a piece of land they didn't own to people who had no claim on it. 1948, in May, when there was a declaration of a state, an apartheid Zionist state that offers citizenship based on religion, removing people, ethnically cleansing an area from over 700,000 people who lived in it. In 1967, the Naksa, as they occupied all of what was left of the Holy Land, murdering people in the hundreds of thousands. These are not issues of debate. This is not an opinion. There's no other side to the story. This is what occurred. The continuing, the ongoing, illegal building of settlements within the Holy Land, going against everything that the actual world disagrees with. They can disagree with us. Doesn't seem that we matter that much. But they're doing it again illegally as far as the rest of the world is concerned. The people of Gaza are living in a very small piece of land. It's a strip. It's called the Strip. It's one of the most highly dense populated places on the planet. 2-point-something million live there. They have nowhere to go. They've been under siege, full siege for 15 years. For 16 for me to be a bit more accurate. They've under general siege for 50 years. But no, let's talk about the right of the oppressor to continue their oppression. No, the oppressed has no right. Let's talk to the oppressed and focus on why did you resist like that, O oppressed? Why didn't you resist a little bit better? Don't you have better tools to resist your oppressor? You understand how ethically compromising it is for you to witness an oppression. Let it go. Allow it to exist. Turn to the oppressed and hold them accountable for the method of their resistance, or for how they deal with it, or for being in a state where they don't agree on everything. When they have these conversations with you, when they ask you, do you condemn this or do you condemn that? Say, do you condemn the Balfour Declaration of 1917? Do you condemn the Nakba of 48? Do you condemn the Naksa of 67? Do you condemn the ongoing settlements that are being built? Do you condemn that stuff? Condemn that first, and then we'll talk about the details. I'll take you out for tea, and we'll talk about it. And I'll answer all your questions. And I'll point out maybe how they could have done it better. I don't care about that right now. I'm not having that discussion with you. You don't get to argue that with me. This oppression is ongoing. You have no right to have that discussion with me at all. At all, not in any form. The oppression still stands. We see it. We watch it. Condemn it. Remove it. May the oppressor be removed from the land that he occupies illegally. And then we'll talk about what should have happened, or what could have happened better, or why things went in the way they went. Shameful. It's shameful. It's unethical. It's disgusting to turn to the oppressed and expect them to... It's not appropriate. As Muslims, it's extremely clear. The history is extremely clear. Let me be even more clear on something. This conflict was never Muslim and Jews. It never was. This has never been the issue. We have no problem as Muslims with the Jewish faith at all, or any other faith for that matter. We have lived side by side every faith on earth for the last 1,400 years. You come from a major city in the Middle East, you know where the Jewish neighborhoods were. Every single major city. Everyone's nodding. You know where they lived there for a very long time. The Jews moved with us. During the Crusades, when the Muslims were removed from the Holy Land, they left with us. When we went back to Salah ad-Din, they went back right in. When we left Andalus, they left with us. They've always been a side by side with us. This is a conflict of a mazlama. This is an act of oppression. Dhulm dhulumat, ya akhwan. An act of oppression. It's like cancer. If you don't remove it, it just keeps on spreading. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse. It never gets better. It never just goes away. It never goes away. The smallest act of oppression lives on till the day of judgment. It comes in the form of darkness on the sirat. That's what oppression is. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about oppression. The oppression of the Palestinian people is not the only act of oppression that's occurred upon Muslims. I'm ashamed to say I don't know all of them. I'm ashamed to say that I don't know all of them. I don't speak of all of them as frequently as I should. And some of you here come from parts of the world where you were oppressed and your people were oppressed, and the people on the Minabra don't talk about your oppression. For that, I apologize. For that, I seek your forgiveness, because your mazlama is equal to every other mazlama. But today, we are witnessing something that we have not witnessed before. Most of the people who are alive today, of my generation, a bit younger, a bit older, haven't seen anything like this. So we have to talk about it a little bit. I have to point out What is it that's actually happening? Why is it happening? And where do we go from here? But make sure that this narrative is the only narrative you are willing to entertain. Do not entertain any other narrative. Do not engage in any form of conversation outside of it. There's no point. Why would you, see in the art of debate, if you have a weak argument, you distract. You distract. You point out things here and there. These are fallacies. If you study a little bit of philosophy, they do it all the time. You distract. You bring up something else. You talk about their character. You poke and you get them distracted so they don't know. If you have a strong argument, you know where the haqq is, you stick to the haqq. They can talk, no, we come back. We come back to the haqq. They're ahl haqq. The people of Palestine are a people of a right. They have a right that was taken away from them. Period. End of sentence. Nothing else after that. Not interested in having more conversations. They're ahl haqq. It was taken away. Talk to me when you when you get on board. Talk to me when you get on board in supporting their right. When you support the oppressed, then we'll talk. Don't come to me as you continue to support the oppressor. And that's where we seem to fail in these conversations. Narratives matter, and mark my words. Do not allow, if we don't allow ourselves to get distracted, if we don't allow ourselves to be taken in direction where the story doesn't matter anymore, you have an impeccable, unpenetratable argument. And yes, as bombs fall upon our people, and as their land is carpet bombed, that may not seem too important to them. But in the long run, that will matter. It will make a difference for what we can do from where we land and where we live. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم يا فوز المستغفرين استغفر الله. الحمد لله وحده وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اتبع نهجه ووفى عهده. إخواني وأخواتي، هذه ليست أول مرة في حياتي أقف على منبر أتحدث فيها عن مأساة من مآسي إخواننا وأخواتنا في الأرض المقدسة في فلسطين، وأخشى ألا يكون هذا آخر العهد بهذه المسألة. لكن بالتأكيد لم نرى وحشية ولم نرى ازدواجية في المعايير ولا نفاقا هو أبشع من الذي نراه اليوم فيما يقوم به العدو الصهيوني على أرضنا المقدسة ومع إخواننا وأخواتنا. لست هنا لحشد المشاعر على هذه القضية، فالكل هنا يشاهد يوميا ما يحصل، ولعل بعضنا لا ينام جيدا، ولعل الغضب والخوف هما المشاعر التي يشعر بها معظم الناس خلال هذه الأيام التي مضت. لكن غايتي اليوم في الحديث هو التأكيد على الخطاب، هو التأكيد على الرواية الإسلامية والرواية العربية والرواية الفلسطينية التي يجب التمسك بها بدون مهاودة. لا تنشغل بنقاشات جانبية. اسمع مني هذا الكلام. أنت تتفق مع ما تقوم به المقاومة، ما تتفق، يعجبك، هذه ليست هنا النقطة. نقطة الفقهاء يتحدثون عن شيء اسمه محل النزاع. حتى نحل أي مشكلة يجب أن نتفق على محل النزاع. ما هو محل النزاع في هذه القضية؟ محل النزاع واضح في هذه القضية. هناك مظلمة وقعت على أرض فلسطين الأرض المقدسة من أكثر من 100 عام، لما وعد البريطانيون هذه الأرض لأشخاص لم يكونوا يسكنون فيها. هم لا يملكون هذه الأرض وأعطوها لغيرهم. ثم لما أعلنت هذه الدولة الصهيونية القائمة على العنصرية والقائمة على إعطاء الجنسية بالدين، ما في دولة هكذا تصنع، حتى ما في دولة يا أخواني تعطي الجنسية وفق الدين إلا هذا المكان. هذه حقائق تاريخية. ثم النكسة في 67، ثم متابعة بناء المستوطنات في الأراضي التي أقرت الأمم المتحدة أنه لا يجوز لهم البناء فيها. هذه مسلمات، هذه قضايا الكل يتفق عليها. أنا لست مضطرا لخوض نقاشات متعلقة عن سلوك هؤلاء أو هؤلاء أو لماذا الفلسطينيون متنازعون فيما بين. أنا ما يهمني هذه المسألة ولا أتحدث عنها، لا أسكن معهم أصلا، وعيب علي أن أتحدث عن أحوالهم، وأن أقف على من برجي العاجي أتحدث عن هل المفترض يفعل كذا ولا ما يفعل. أنا ما أعرف، أنا ما أسكن معهم، أنا لم أعامل كالحيوان 70 عام حتى أتحدث بالنيابة عنهم. يفعلوا ما يشاءون، فليفعلوا ما يريدون، بالنسبة إلي القضية في منتهى الوضوح، مظلمة وقعت، وحتى زوال هذه المظلمة نقف مع الحقوق المنتهكة والأراضي المغتصبة والمقدسات التي أخذت ظلما وعدوانا. انتهى الأمر. وأي إنسان عنده شيء من الضمير أو شيء من الأخلاق لا يمكن له أن يقف مع الظالم ضد المظلوم. المسلم ما يفعل هذا أصلا. نحن ما نقف مع الظلمة من المسلمين. لكن العالم الذي نسكن فيه اليوم هو عالم مختلف، عالم اختيارا يغض الطرف عن المظالم هكذا، يضع يده هكذا ويغض الطرف عن المظلمة ويركز في التفاصيل التي لا معنى لها، يركز في تفاصيل لا معنى لها، يحاسب المظلوم على كيفية مقاومته الظلم. هذا في التالي هذا عجيب والله، إن هذا لشيء عجاب. كيف تحاسب المظلوم؟ المظلوم الذي مظلمته أمام الناس والناس كلهم تركوهم، تحاسبه كيف يقاوم الظلم؟ يا عيني، إيش هالجمال هذا؟ هذا الذي يحصل اليوم. فلتكن الرواية في منتهى الوضوح، لا تتشتت، لا تدع الناس يأخذونك يمينا أو شمالا في هذه القضية. الأمر بسيط وواضح تاريخيا وما زال وسيبقى هكذا إلى حد وحين زوال الظلم. What I have to share with you is that just watching TV and getting upset and chatting about it over dinner tables or within small settings doesn't really do very much. I think we've come to that conclusion already. Nothing really changes. And you can say we should make dua for them. I don't consider that doing something. Of course you're going to make dua for them. You're Muslim. What else are you doing? Of course, you make dua every day. Of course, if you don't make dua for them, then I don't know what else does. That doesn't count as doing something, though. Of course, you're going to make dua for them every single day. Every time you make sujood, every time you're walking down the street, you're making dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects them, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps them safe, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants them the salvation that they deserve. Ameen. Of course, you're making that dua. But that doesn't count as doing something yet. Doing something requires you to assess where you stand in this world, what status you have, what options are ahead of you, and then you go ahead and you find something to do. Whether it's political advocacy. We, as a community here in London, are quite fortunate that we're not widely spread out. We're not spread out. All the institutions work close together. And there's a lot of communication. The politicians whom we voted in, who are showing unwavering support for the oppressor to continue their oppression, should feel it. Should feel the lack of our support and the lack of our respect and the lack of us ever being wanting to be involved with them again. They have to feel that. And that has to come through political advocacy. You have to send emails, you have to send letters, and when time comes, you need to demand meetings and town hall meetings, and you have to voice your concerns. This can't just... I come from a generation, let me be very honest with you, where I don't expect anything more from politicians. I grew up in Syria. I never talked about politics for the majority of my life, so I don't know what I'm doing. And I don't expect more. I know all politicians are corrupt. That's what I expect. When they're corrupt, it's just, yep, that's pretty much, good for you. That's what you're going to do. Didn't expect more from you. I don't think that's right, though. I think that's wrong. I think that the way I was brought up that way, and the people, generation, and all the generation above me know that, by the way. If you're 50 years, you know exactly that's how you think, and we all think that way. I don't think that's correct, though. I think that should change, and it can change. And with the proper amount of advocacy in our community, it will change. It will change. And we need to encourage our younger brothers and sisters, give them the support, give them the backing so they can go ahead and they can advocate. Because that's how you change public opinion. And that's how you make sure that we don't live in a country that continues to support the oppressor. Not just verbally, but maybe even financially, or maybe even worse than that. We can't afford to do that as Muslims here. That has to be one of our priorities. Has to be one of our priorities as a Muslim community. So political advocacy right now is extremely important. Financial support. Make sure that we continue. They're going to need to rebuild. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects them, and this ends soon, and they don't continue to go through what they're going through. The numbers are just getting higher, and it's very difficult to imagine. But they're going to need that support, that financial support, and we need to offer it. Educate people around you. Do not be ashamed to talk about this. Make sure that you are not being silenced or made to feel embarrassed because this is what you believe. Make sure that's the case. there is a line that has to be drawn in the life of a Muslim of what they're willing to kind of let go of, ignore, keep on the side burner for a while and not really talk about, and what isn't. This is not something we can afford to leave on the side burner and talk about. No, not at all. This is an issue of dhulm. Islam's core value is anti-oppression, is anti-dhulm. It's what Islam is about. There's no Islam without that. Everything else is just a secondary, tertiary thought. This is the main value of Islam, al-haq and al-adl. And without those two, then I don't know what we have. And this is an example of where it should be clear. So educate and raise awareness around you. When it comes to media, make sure you have a presence there, especially if you're younger and you understand how it works. I don't understand how it works, and I don't have a presence, and I probably never will. But many of you can and will. And that's where a lot of this education will occur. And the final point that I want to share with you in this khutbah is the children. Our children better grow up knowing what happened. They better know the history like the back of their hands. They better know exactly what occurred and where they stand of it and the importance of it in their lives. Not just this mazlama, but every mazlama that occurred, every act of oppression that continues. They have to be aware of it and they have to know where they stand from it. But specifically regarding the Holy Land, where Masjid al-Aqsa exists, a piece that is holy to us as Muslims. We have a connection to that. He went there, alayhi salatu wasalam. He ascended to the heavens from there. It's in our book. This has to be clear. Make sure your children take the time, educate them so they know. Because causes only die when people stop speaking out for them. That's when a cause dies. Can you think of examples of causes that are righteous, that died because there's no one speaking for them anymore? I can. And this can't be one of them. We continue to make sure that every generation is as committed to the freedom, the liberty, the integrity, the rights of all Palestinian people in the Holy Land, to the last person and to the last centimeter of land. And I don't think there's anything outside of that that's worth even discussion. Today there will be too many announcements. I'll only tell you two things. So today there at 5 p.m. No, that's not what I wanted to say. The donation for Gaza, there's still a QR code that you can use. I'm not finding what I'm looking for. So there are going to be events over this weekend that are specifically directed towards the support of our brothers and sisters in Gaza, Palestine, and to support our youth here who are observing it all, watching it, taking it in. It's very traumatic. It's very difficult to accept. It's very difficult to understand. And there are going to be a number of different events that are there for them. So make sure you keep your eyes and ears open. Take your children to it, and advise people and encourage people to go and attend, and encourage yourself and others to donate as generously as possible for our brothers and sisters in the Holy Land. I hope that was of benefit to you. واعلموا أن الله أمرنا بأمر عظيم فقال إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد وارض اللهم عن الأربعة الخلفاء السادة الحنفاء أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وارض اللهم عن أزواجه أمهات المؤمنين وعن آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعن صحابته الغر الميامين وعن التابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين وعنا معهم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات اللهم فرج هموم المهمومين ونفس كروب المكروبين وارفع الغم عن المغمومين وارفع الظلم عن المظلومين واحقن دماءنا ودماء المسلمين اللهم رحمتك لإخواننا في غزة فلسطين اللهم ارحمهم من فوقهم ومن تحتهم وعن أيمانهم وعن شمائلهم اللهم رد كيد العداة في نحورهم يا رب العالمين اللهم انصر إخواننا المرابطين في المسجد الأقصى ورده إلينا في العاجل القريب يا رب العالمين اللهم ردنا أجمعين إليك وإلى دينك ردا جميلا اللهم ردنا أجمعين إليك وإلى دينك ردا جميلا وألهمنا حسن نصرة إخواننا يا رب العالمين ولا تجعلنا من المتخاذلين يا حي يا قيوم وخلص هذه الأمة يا رب العالمين من المتخاذلين من حكامهم يا يا أرحم الراحمين ويا أكرم الأكرمين ويا قوي ويا متين، ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح، قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
دائما أبدا لا إله إلا الله. استووا اعتدلوا استقيموا لا تختلفوا، حذو الملائكة بسد الخلل، تدعوا فرجا بينكم، سووا الصف، تسوية الصف من إقام الصلاة، أتموا الأول فالأول. leaning بأيدي إخوانكم, shoulder to shoulder, ankle to ankle, straighten your lines, closing the gaps and silence your phones. Make sure the line ahead of you is complete before you start the one behind it. استووا يرحمكم الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. وقال الذين كفروا لرسلهم لنخرجنكم من أرضنا أو لتعودن في ملتنا، فأوحى إليهم ربهم لنهلكن الظالمين ولنسكننكم الأرض من بعدهم، ذلك لمن خاف مقامي وخاف وعيد. واستفتحوا وخاب كل جبار عنيد، من ورائه جهنم ويسقى من ماء صديد يتجرعه ولا يكاد يسيغه، ويأتيه الموت من كل مكان وما هو بميت، ومن ورائه عذاب غليظ. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين، إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت، وإلى السماء كيف رفعت، وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت، وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت. فذكر إنما أنت مذكر، لست عليهم بمسيطر، إلا من تولى وكفر فيعذبه الله العذاب الأكبر. إن إلينا إيابهم ثم إن علينا حسابهم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر السلام عليكم ورحمة الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله
Assalamu alaikum. The link to make donations for Palestine was sent in your emails yesterday and today and WhatsApp. So you should have that link. You can link to it to send money to Gaza, inshallah. If you are not on our email list or WhatsApp list, please see the secretary on your way out, and she'll help you with that. Okay, and there's going to be a janazah immediately after my announcements. Number two, there is an event tonight at Mac Hyde Park with Dr.